Welcome back to Simplifying the State, the podcast where we break down politics so you don't have to pretend to know what a filibuster is. As always, I'm Adam Watson.
And I'm Nicholas Perrin.
So, Nicholas, what do the Bay of Pigs invasion, the firing on Fort Sumter, and the pardoning of Nixon all have in common?
Were they all completed in the first 100 days of presidency?
That is correct, and that's what we're going to be talking about this week. The history of the first 100 days in office and how that compares to Trump's 100 days in office. All right, so Nicholas, you want to give us a history of that?
Yeah, I can do that. So typically, the first 100 days of presidency are used to define how well a president is doing based on their approval ratings. Usually in the first 100 days, approval ratings are pretty high. Usually during that time, the opposition party, which lost, takes a back seat, licks its wounds and tries to see what it did wrong and what it can do better. The 100 days gained significance after FDR, in which he signed a bunch of executive orders and changed the way how the U.S. government worked, made it a lot bigger. And I think a good point of comparison of what we're going to get into is the first 100 days of Joe Biden's presidency, in which he signed 42 executive orders, tried to get back to where Barack Obama left off, and pledged to do the following: provide 100 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine, utilize the Defense Production Act to produce personal protective equipment, raise the refugee caps up from Trump, revoke or stop construction on the Mexico-United States border wall, and travel restrictions for Muslim countries, and rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement, and end involvement in the war in Afghanistan, and stop drilling on federal lands. He managed to accomplish about the vaccines. He rejoined the Paris Climate Agreement and the WHO. He ended the travel restrictions for Muslim countries, and he used the Defense Production Act to produce personal protective equipment. He did not completely stop construction on the southern border wall. He did not completely raise the refugee cap, and he did not stop oil drilling, and did not stop U.S. involvement in Yemen. So, Adam, how does that connect to today?
Okay, so in his first 100 days, President Trump has signed 143 executive orders, the most of any president in this period, even including FDR. He has signed 42 proclamations, 42 memorandums, and has signed a couple of pieces of legislation, including the Laken-Riley Act, a Continuing Appropriations Act, and other pieces of legislation. Trump has used executive orders heavily, especially when it comes to tariffs. He's used executive orders and the power of the executive branch to enact his tariff policy, which has been a big focal point of his first 100 days in office. As you kind of said, in his first 100 days, a lot of the executive orders he has signed have been to reverse actions taken by the Biden administration. A couple of these was he expanded the U.S.-Mexico border wall and declared a southern emergency on the southern border. He delayed an impending TikTok ban. He defined gender as an immutable male or female binary. He ordered a 90-day pause on most foreign aid. He issued a 90-day hiring freeze, and basically did a bunch of stuff like that. He also implemented a ban on federal DEI, and pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords, which is what he did also in his first term. So, in terms of massive, sweeping legislation, there has not been a lot that was done in his first 100 days compared to other presidents. The most notable one was probably the Laken-Riley Act, which was, you could say it was possibly the debt ceiling thing where he signed a continuing resolution, but that one was less so legislation, more so just keeping the government open. But yeah, the Laken-Riley Act was probably the most was probably the most sweeping piece of legislation he signed in his second 100 days in office. Yeah, I mean, he has done a lot in terms of executive actions, but not much in terms of legislation, which is a big departure from administrations like Barack Obama or Joe Biden or George W. Bush.
And more recently, which it's not his 30 days anymore, or 100 days, sorry, but he has said he will reopen Alcatraz,
Mhm.
and he has also stopped providing research grants to Harvard. So,
Yeah, no, definitely more executive action, more using the executive branch. I mean, he could possibly have gotten through more legislation. I mean, the Republicans do have a trifecta uh, across the House, the Senate, and the executive branch, and they have majorities in the Senate and the House. They're not, at least in the House, they're not sweeping majorities. They have a 4-seat majority in the Senate, if you count J.D. Vance. So yeah, they probably could have gotten more legislation done in the first 100 days, but my guess is Trump wanted to do more executive action and then wait to get into the big political fights, which inevitably come when you're trying to draft big pieces of legislation. He wanted to save that for after the 100 days, most likely, is what I'd assume happened.
and based on what we saw with a new record being set for the longest filibuster, uh, any action in the legislative branch might have been, well, would have come with a lot of resistance from Democrats.
Yeah, I think that I think it would probably have depended upon the legislation that they attempted to pass. Like you said, in most 100 days, the opposition party kind of takes a back seat. That was not the case. This time, the Democrats have taken a much more vocal stance on their opposition to the Trump administration than they did in 2016, and then other opposition parties have done in the past. So I think it would have depended upon the legislation that the Republicans attempted to propose, and the language of that would have probably uh, decided the amount of pushback we saw from the Democrats.
And based on everything we've seen in the past 100 days and even are starting to see now, like it doesn't look like the, I guess, maelstrom of news will really slow down at all. Like it seems like things are just gonna keep getting like quicker and quicker, and it'll be even harder to, well, not harder, but it'll still be very difficult to like keep up.
Yeah, no, definitely. This administration has probably uh, been giving news apps and news websites quite the headache trying to keep it all up. CNN does this thing on their app where they do like live updates, and I'm like just like constantly getting live update, Trump administration, live update this, live update that, and there's just like a lot that they've been trying to keep up with. But yeah, this administration has certainly been doing a lot of stuff, and has been doing a lot of stuff in very rapid succession.
If you were to define the Trump, like first 100 days of office of Trump in his second term, how would you like summarize it?
Uh, I'd say probably kind of chaotic. I'm not sure. I mean, I have my own beliefs about whether it's chaotic in a good way or chaotic in a bad way, but I think chaotic simply because of just how much stuff has been happening. So, I mean, the Trump administration proposes um, something, or they do an executive order, or they do something like that, and then then you have judges saying that this is unconstitutional, or you have lawsuits from states saying this is unconstitutional, and then you have the Trump administration doing that, or you have like the tariffs, you know, uh, we're doing tariffs, and then 5 days later we're not doing tariffs anymore, but some of the tariffs are staying. It's just very chaotic, and it feels very like uncertain, I guess. Uncertain possibly would be another word to describe it, but chaotic probably. All right. Thanks for listening to Simplifying the State. We'll be back next week with our next episode, so stay tuned then. Please make sure, if you enjoy the podcast, to rate it on Spotify, follow or subscribe, whatever the option is, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or YouTube. And we'll see you next time.